The Ryan and Ryan Power Hour podcast on SportstownChicago.com. This is the Ryan and Ryan Power Hour here on SportstownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky.
And you can follow us on Twitter at Ryan Stuprich.
At rrisky16.
And you can call the show as well, 630-403-5200, 630-403-5200. Next week, we hope to have a couple good guests on, hopefully, because I know in the past on Friday Sports Ride I've had Mark Grody on and a lot of people from the Score and stuff, so we'll try to get those people on again, as well as maybe some new people as well, because it's always fun to talk with professionals. We're professionals by no means, so.
Well, we know what we're talking about, too.
Yeah, especially with the Bears at least heading somewhat in the right direction by hiring their new GM, Ryan Pace. What do you think about him?
I like his track record. He's got a good resume of strong drafts and not going and breaking the bank in free agency. He goes and signs the cost-controlled, the quality. He makes quality signings, like the Willie Young type signings, like the young guys that have a lot of potential, and you lock them up for a couple of years, and then they have some big years, and then you still have them under contract for quite cheap.
Right.
Yeah, they don't break the bank like they did that with Drew Brees and Darren Sproles.
Yeah, you know, the thing I like about him is he was able to get a guy like Drew Brees, and and obviously Drew Brees is a really good quarterback. He's done a really good job, and he's been able to work with him and stuff. So I think he has a lot of knowledge about the quarterback position. So I think he'll be able to really help out with Jay Cutler too.
Right, and it's not only that, it's also that the Bears didn't go with. I mean, Chris Ballard it looked like he was the front runner for the job. However, I read that it was mostly he had too many ties to the old regimen, that they were kind of worried about that. They didn't want him to go and bring in just some guy from Kansas City or anything. Even though this is a younger guy, they're going with, it doesn't really matter how young or how old you are. It's about how smart you are and how you can make these good decisions. Like when the Red Sox hired Theo Epstein, he became the youngest general manager ever.
Right, and I think because Ryan Pace is, I think, 37 years old.
He is.
And Theo Epstein, when he started with the Red Sox, he was younger than that, right?
Yeah, he was in his 20s, I believe.
Right. So that, it just goes to show, it doesn't really matter what age they are. And it might actually be, a beneficial thing that he's younger, too. So time will tell. But, you had Jerry Angelo. That was okay for a while.
Yeah, it's just like it came into the thing with Emery. The drafts was a problem. Like, you can't just have one guy in every draft. Like, you need multiple guys that can stick around and be role players, and then if you don't want to keep them when their rookie contract's up, you let them leave, and then you draft some new guys. Where Emery, his first draft, all that's left is Alshon Jeffrey, and granted, Shea McClellan's still with the team, except when he's on the field, he's invisible. You never hear his name. And
right.
Then the next draft, he drafts another known. That's another thing. He didn't draft the best player available. He was drafting no-name guys in the first round, like Shea McClellan and Kyle Long. Granted, Kyle Long has turned into a home run of a pick, except what if you had drafted a really good defensive player in that first round or something?
Then maybe you wouldn't be so bad defensively now.
And then you get Kyle Long in the second round, which is when they would have been able to get him regardless. Mm-hmm. And then the next year, they need a safety and a linebacker really bad. You got Clinton Dix and C.J. Mosley both available.
And then, of course, the Packers ended up with Clinton Dix.
Yeah, that was like a gift to them. And same with the Ravens, getting Ray Lewis's successor the season after he retires.
Right.
They got C.J. Mosley, who was up for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Granted, Kyle Fuller looks like a good pick, and it was good that Tillman could groom him for a year because he did a nice job with the turnovers. He dealt with injuries, and then, of course, he got burned by Jordy Nelson and Megatron. So, he's got quite a bit of development, except then after that, you go and take Ego Ferguson and Will Sutton, who were both drafted at least one round before they should have been picked. And then the fourth round, you draft Kadeem Carey. Did this team really have so few holes that in the fourth round you take a running back when you already have Matt Forte?
Right. Well, and that's why I think, obviously Ryan Pace won't make as many mistakes as Phil Emery did. But
right, and he won't be going and breaking the bank with all these free agent signings. The funny thing is, after the Jared Allen signing last year, ESPN 1000 for Chicago, they had a poll for which GM has the best thing going in his respective city. I'm going to pull that picture up. Here it is, and it was and they listed all the GMs. Stan Bowman won 49% of the vote.
Okay.
Phil Emery won 34%.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Theo Epstein only got 8.
That's up now for sure.
Gar Forman is at 6.
I don't know. I don't understand the hate for Gar Forman. He's done a lot of really good things. The bad things he's done was the Carlos Boozer thing was the main thing.
Except they had to go out and give money.
But you had to go get somebody, and then that was the same offseason where LeBron went from the Cavaliers to the Heat, and you were really trying to get him and banking on him, and then you had to settle for a scoring power forward. But
right. Well, remember they had a contract with Joe Johnson, except then Atlanta offered him more money, and then he took that. And then Rick Hahn was at 3%. Now, I'm pretty sure that before Emery was fired and after the season ended, that even during the season, Phil Emery would be probably dead last, and Theo and Stan.
He has to be last.
Theo and Stan Bowman would probably be
first and second,
fighting for the top 2 spots. I'm pretty sure Stan would be number 1 just because of the success he's had with the NHL team.
The 2 championships in 4 years or 5 years, whatever it's been. So,
and then Gar Forman would be getting a lot more votes because missing out on Carmelo and getting Powell is looking like huge, and then bringing Mirotic over finally.
And Doug McDermott has a lot of promise, but he's been injured. But hopefully he'll be able to play some soon because he seems like he could be another good guy to have on that team. If Mirotic is guarded or something, then you just go to the other side and there's Doug McDermott for a wide open 3.
Right.
Should work out.
And then the point guard factory that's been going on since Thibodeau's been here. I mean, every year you get someone. C.J. Watson, Nate Robinson, DJ Augustine, now Aaron Brooks.
Yeah.
And then they go and sign multi-year contracts, and then they don't perform.
Right. And going back to the Bears for a second, so now that Ryan Pace is the new GM, who do you think he's going to hire for his coach? I mean, Todd Bowles is probably the leading candidate. At least that's what a lot of people are saying. Although I'm not, there's still a lot of people out there, and I'm not sure how many people left they're going to have an interview with, but it's going to be tough.
Now, since they fired Mark Trestman, and even before Mark Trestman was fired, I've been calling for the Bears to hire Todd Bowles.
Yes, you have. Yes,
I know. I've been making sure everyone knows who I want them to hire, and now they've already interviewed Dan Quinn and Adam Gage, which is the Seahawks defensive coordinator and Broncos offensive coordinator, respectively.
Right.
I assume that they're going to interview both of those candidates again because now they have Ryan Pace to interview them. Where Todd Bowles, he wasn't supposed to be interviewed until Saturday, except then the Falcons' schedule got screwed over with the death in the owner's family, so they had to push that back. So the Bears interviewed him on Thursday, and that was the first interview that Ryan Pace has been there for. So I'm just going to assume they're going to interview both of those guys again. They'll probably request a couple of more interviews. One thing that I'm actually kind of glad that they've announced is that they're not interested in Rex Ryan because the man knows absolutely nothing about offense, and the Bears aren't a team that's going to hire like a guy that only knows defense and doesn't know a single thing about offense and then hire him a good offensive guy to run the team because the Bears like to hire the cheapest coaches possible. I mean, when they had Rod Marinelli as the defensive coordinator, he was the head coach of the 0-16 Lions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
exactly.
I mean, now they have Mel Tucker, and he still hasn't been fired? Like, really? Remember the Mike Tice days when they had the worst offensive line in the NFL for like 5 consecutive years, and he was the offensive line coach each year?
Yep. I mean, that's what the Bears like to do. They like to give their coaches chances.
Yeah, well, no, they like finding the cheapest candidate possible, and then they don't want to fire them. And then the quarterbacks coach the past couple of years, Matt Cavanaugh. Do you know who the big quarterback on his resume is?
Who?
Mark Sanchez.
Yeah.
From his time with the Jets. Do those sound like competent coaches for an NFL coaching staff?
Not at all.
I don't know. The funny thing is, the best offensive coordinator that they've probably had in the Jay Cutler era has been Mike Martz. And the funny thing is, they had him at the wrong time. If they had him when they had Marshall, that would have been the perfect time to have Mike Martz.
Right, and then maybe he would have kept Greg Olson.
Right, and then he would have loved Martellus Bennett too. And then not only that, And that, like, if he was around a couple of years, if they had had him a couple of years later, they would have had Marshall. They would have had an offensive line,
and they would have drafted Jeffrey, and they would have had him on there too. So right, I mean, it would have been really good.
I mean, that would have been a perfect offense for Mike Martz. And then, of course, you had the pass catcher in Matt Forte, where he could work that into the game plan, because then you wouldn't be throwing to him just because Cutler has no time to find anyone.
Yeah, I mean. Because it's kind of interesting, because that does seem like the main reason why he throws to Forte all the time. It's like, oh, God, I got nothing to do. Here's a little 2-yard pass to Forte, and then hopefully he can try to, go through a couple tackles and get a first down.
Well, it is, because if you look at it, the ball's being snapped, and then he's already got defenders about to clobber him.
Yeah.
I mean, the blocking this year was very, very poor. And when I read that Kyle Long was the only Bears player that made the Pro Bowl this year, I was just kind of wondering, how did Matt Forte not make it? Or Martellus Bennett?
Yeah, they both had good years. Forte had an outstanding year. Martellus, I mean, he wasn't as good as he was last year.
He was better.
But, okay, yeah.
He was better.
He
more catches, more yards, more touchdowns.
That's true. He did have more touchdowns than yards.
And, more yards, more catches, and he had better stats than Jimmy Graham.
Yeah,
why? He was statistically, I believe he was the second best tight end to Gronk this year.
He probably was. At least he was in the top 3 or 4 there. So I mean, it's I guess it's sort of a shame. I didn't realize that Martellus had a good year like he had, but that's just because the Bears season was so bad.
I think he had like 90. I think he had like 90 catches.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds 80s. Right. Yeah, so yeah. I mean, he was definitely doing really well this year, and him and Forte were really good. They're obviously not the reasons why the Bears are so bad, and they didn't make it to the Pro Bowl, but at least Kyle Long did. At least they got somebody.
Yeah, and going back to the Bears being cheap, it also goes with the Mark Trestman hire. I mean, I remember Rod Marinelli. When Phil Emery asked Rod Marinelli to give him, they had 3 candidates. And he gave him, and then he put Mark Trestman dead last, and next to his name he said, "Don't hire this guy." They hired Mark Trestman, Rod Marinelli quit.
Yep, I know. We didn't find that out until a little bit...
a couple weeks ago.
Later
we
on,
we didn't really know the real reason that he left. And then also, the Bears, I think I read they have the minimum number of coaches that's allowed on a coaching staff. They don't have an assistant head coach. Their offensive line coach is also the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, they could have used some other guys there. But, I mean...
They're cheap, and the coaches they have, it's not like they're good coaches. I mean, like Norv Turner, he's getting paid more than most head coaches to be the Vikings offensive coordinator. Todd Bowles, during the season, was extended by the Cardinals, and they made him the highest paid defensive coordinator. I mean, the thing is, you need to have good coaching, and the Bears won. They don't have enough coaching, and they had the minimum number of guys. They have guys doing the same thing, and they're probably not even qualified to do either of those 2 jobs. Like, Mike Tice wasn't qualified to be the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach. The year that he did it, it was awful. I mean, no assistant head coach. I believe they only have a couple of defensive coaches because they like to double up to save money, and then they hired the cheap guys anyways, which... It's just frustrating that they don't want to have a good staff. And I kind of read somewhere that said that really hiring a head coach right now, like as quickly as they can, not saying they should just rush it, is also kind of a race to who can get the best staff that's available.
Yeah.
The Bears, they'll wait for all the good candidates to be gone, and then they'll just hire the cheap guys that'll do a terrible job.
Yeah, I just think... Once they hire the head coach, then the head coach will probably have some people in mind that he wants to be on the team, and that's when Mel Tucker will be fired, and that's when all these other guys will be fired. Is when
they're holding
they
out
hire the head coach.
The Bears are holding out all hope that the new head coach won't want to fire anyone.
Right.
That's probably why they didn't fire anybody. The only reason Cromer was fired was because of the Cutler incident.
Yeah, and. Obviously, that was not, that told you that there was a lot more problems than we had even imagined with the team. And now, it just got worse and worse every time, pretty much. Every week there was something new.
Yeah, so anyway, who do you want the Bears to hire as the head coach?
I think you're spot on with your pick there with Todd
Bowles.
With Todd Bowles, not
Is that
Bowles.
who you want them to hire, or is that just who you think?
No, that's who I want them to hire. I can't think of anybody else who would be, as good of a fit as him. And
right,
and as you've been saying since the beginning, I mean,